Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another episode of the Eclectic Soundtrax podcast. We got a nice short and sweet one today. Today we talk with Esteban Alverez. Esteban's a native of Costa Rica, and he's actually joining us in Costa Rica right now. He resides in Austin. He received his Bachelor's Degree in classical piano performance and a Master's in jazz performance, and currently is the founding member and executive director of Chorus Austin. It's a nonprofit created to assist in humanitarian causes via music. We have a really interesting conversation here. It's not a very long episode, but it's still worthwhile to listen to. As always, Skunk would like to thank his friends at Godin Guitars, Tragan Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and 5 Iron Woodworks. Sit back, relax, listen to us talk about food, music, and everything else in between. All right, laters.
Welcome to episode number 45, Eclectic Soundtrax. This is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a noisy because our guest, Esteban Alverez, is wandering around San Jose, Costa Rica at a fruit fest. Is that what it is?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. You didn't get the memo about the podcast details. So what it's, this is kind of cool though. Show us around, man. Cause you just showed us, we got a glimpse of what you're looking at. It's pretty awesome.
Take a look at this. You don't get to see this anywhere in the United States because everything there is plastic. Take a look at this.
That is true.
That's beautiful.
That looks awesome.
And the interesting part of it, and maybe we can mix this concept with music, will be very, very convenient today, is that they don't know this is organic. And I tell you why they don't know this is organic. They don't know this is organic because that term hasn't really been, there's not a marketing for that term.
Right.
Meaning everybody does these things here with no pesticides, no chemicals. So they just don't know that's what we call organic, and that they don't know we pay a high price for these kind of things because they just think that's the normal way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
You're I mean, absolutely, man. It's inspiring to see that. I mean, because everything here is like you have to buy the organic, and then you're kind of like, should I pay for this extra? I do sometimes, and a lot of things say that nowadays, and everything's no hormones and this and that. You know,
if you want to eat right in the United States, you have to have money. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have to buy Walmart stuff and things that you don't know what you're getting. You just simply don't know because it's all made for production. It's all made to scale, to marketize, to monetize it. It's not meant to feed you. It's just meant to be a business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the food industry is just a way. Which, by the way, as I said, maybe this is a good topic to start off this. It's not any different than music today, right? Most music today it's not made to connect with something deeper, to make you think, to make you go deeper. It's made to entertain. So the quickest, the cheapest, the fastest, the easiest done is the best. It's what sells the most, right?
The fast food music.
Yeah, it's very formulaic. Yeah. We had an engineer on the show, man, and he called it popcorn. It was like microwave popcorn, you know.
Popcorn music, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, man. Well, so Costa Rica, how long have you been down there? Have you been down there for a while, or are you kind of bouncing back and forth?
I go back and forth. I've been there for 24 hours right now. So. But I'm from here, I'm born and raised here. So I come here quite often, maybe 3-4 times a year.
Okay. And you kind of hang out for like a few weeks or a month or?
2 weeks. I actually came here. I just finished my latest project and I'm recording the piano here.
Okay, cool.
I'm recording the piano here at home and I already did all the parts and everything else. Elsewhere, everywhere, in the US, in South America, in Germany, and I'm recording the piano part here because I feel more comfortable doing the piano when I don't have anybody around, when I just can't,
And do you have a nice piano there that you designate to play down there? Or?
I have a nice piano, but that's not what I record on. I have a piano here at home, but it's not a recording piano. It's a good piano, but it's not a recording piano. But I have a good friend of mine that he has a really nice studio, and he has a wonderful piano that it's perfect for recording. Now, I could get something better in the States, but the price is not right.
Is it cheaper to do it down there?
It's cheaper, yes. Yeah. For what I needed, it would be, and renting a Steinway Grand for 3 days is not cheap. You can probably imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, and you're an official Steinway artist, so you always play Steinways, right?
Correct. And so the guy has a Steinway in a studio. It's an older Steinway, but it's a wonderful piano, and it's just perfect for recording. And he has a nice studio. I wouldn't say it's not like the, it's not like the Avatar Studios in New York or anything like that. But it does the job, and it does it pretty well. So that's where I am right now.
And so you said, right, you're about to be recording piano to your latest album, which is a full-length album?
It's a full-length album. It's a 10-song album, and it's music from all over Latin America. 2 songs from Bolivia, 2 songs from Cuba, 2 songs from Mexico, 1 song from Nicaragua, 1 song from Brazil, 1 song from Peru, and 1 song from Argentina.
Wow. So truly a worldly album. And you said you had the other guys track already. So do you have other like scratch stuff that you send and then they track and then you put the piano, the final piano over the top?
Exactly. I put the piano. In fact, I didn't send anything. I went to each of these parts to record with them. Yeah, because it's, for this kind of music, Aaron, as you probably know, this is not stuff that you write down necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's better to meet with the musicians and to talk to them and to get in the vibe with them. Plus, I record a couple of videos with them too, so it only makes sense to go and meet them and greet them. It's just better.
How did you, the particular musicians on this album, like how did you connect with them?
Well, each of the bands or the people that I record with are famous in their own right and in their own country. All of them. Like, for example, this group from Bolivia is called Los Carcas. They are the most famous folk band in South America. The people from Mexico, they are the most famous bolero players in the history of Mexico. The people from Cuba, they are the grandchildren of the Buena Vista Social Club. The guy from Nicaragua, he's probably one of the most well-known songwriters in Nicaragua and Central America. So I choose deliberately these people because they are well-known.
Okay, right. So you reach out to them, you kind of have the concept of these tunes you want to do, and then you find these specific players in each country.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
How long has this project been going? Like, when did you get started on this?
I started on this about a year and a half ago. It's a long-term project because, it takes time to fly to each part, and then the pandemic came and, all that is slowed down. Actually, I would say 1 year and 8 months. Yeah, I would say it's a little longer than 1.5 years. Yeah. It would probably mean a little shorter time-wise if we didn't have the pandemic, but everything stopped and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive you've been able to do anything. I mean, things are kind of coming back around, but how long were you out of commission for a while, just kind of locked down, not able to really go anywhere or do anything? Like, how long did it really affect you in terms of any kind of work at all or connecting with other musicians?
And it really did. I would say economically wise, it didn't, because I don't live by these things. That's not what I do for living. If I had, I don't know what it would be right now. But I would say, like, musically it did, and emotionally, man, it's a big deal, when you get your major source of inspiration from playing with other people, from making music, and you just can't do it. It takes a hit on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's the same thing for our friend who's an engineer recording. When you don't have people recording with you and you don't have anything to mix, anything to create, I'm sure it takes a toll on you, right?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I can't imagine how horrible this would have been, a century ago when the flu pandemic happened. But because at least nowadays, we have the option to shoot files around the world. So I think a lot of guys have actually been able to stay busy mixing stuff that people send them. And I've done a lot of recording remotely with people and teaching, through Zoom and stuff like that. So at least there's that aspect, but it's not the same as being in a group, in a room full of musicians, of course.
Not the same, yeah. I've been doing quite a few things, recording and stuff too myself. But how do I talk to the bass player about a specific, passage in the music, a specific thing in the percussion and those guitars that you can only find in South America and stuff like that. You can give those things, have that kind of narrative and conversation on Skype or Zoom. You just can't do it. It's not the same.
Yeah, especially with the kind of music that you do, whether it be jazz, which is a broad term, or these different Latin styles. It's very much about what's happening in the moment and communicating in a live setting with those musicians, and that's that part of the excitement of the music is that it's happening in real time.
Yes, that's irreplaceable for, I think, in general, for any artist, Aaron, for any type of art. You can't replace the human interaction where you are truly speaking, truly connecting. Some things happen right there on the studio that you can't, as I said, you can't write that down. You cannot. And there are certain ideas, certain things. Remember this, a score is just that. It's a score. It's simply a map of how to navigate about something. But it's not the trip, right? The trip is when you're actually recording and playing. And when you're recording and playing and you find something that, man, this makes much more sense here. Like, can you do this? And how about you try this or that? And then you go ahead and you do it. That's a whole different game that you can't just do on a Skype or on Zoom or anywhere where it's digitalized. You have to have the real experience. I guess maybe at some point where technology advances a little bit more and we can see holograms completely and interact with people in an actual direct way, even if they're not present. Yeah. Maybe that technology will suffice. Maybe.
Well, one thing I found out early in this too, and I've done a bunch of remote recording, but it's a much slower process because that's one thing I love about being in the studio is things happen and you're able to react to them in the moment, and it that magic happens in the studio, right? Just like on stage, but. Remotely recording, it's sort of like, well, here's what I did, and then you got to get the feedback on that. Okay, try that. It's not happening in real time. It's a slow process. And also, I haven't found anything where you can actually effectively jam along to somebody, right? It's just too much of an overload. The bandwidth's not there, and doesn't seem possible yet, at least nothing that I've come across. Have you had that experience too, right? Not there.
It's not the same. The way I think of it is Zooming or Skyping, that's the same thing to me than texting.
Yeah. I happen to like texting though. I don't like phone calls anymore.
You can have a conversation with someone through text. Of course you can, but you don't catch the real things on live. And I think with music it's the same way. When you do music on a Skype or Zoom, you're texting music, pretty much. That's how I feel about it.
Interesting. I'm trying to think when I initially met you, man, because it was at a Steinway showing. It was kind of a fluke, and I went in there and you were just kind of overseeing the thing, I guess, and talking to people, and that's how we met. And then I asked you if you taught, and so I came in and took some lessons from you. And I don't know this, man. Now that I think about it, shit, that was probably like 2013 or somewhere in that area. 12, 13, maybe. It's been a long time.
Like 8-9 years or something like that.
And one thing that I thought was super cool. I mean, you're obviously a professional musician, a great player that can play, anything from Chopin and Rachmaninoff to all kinds of jazz stylings, worldly music. But when I came in there, I don't know if you remember, and I was kind of like, you were like, well, what do you want? And I had a couple of books. I was like, well, I in my mind, I had some questions about what does this mean and how's this turn work and blah, blah, this. And you were like, well, do you want to do classical? Do you want to do jazz? And it was this very distinct thing that you were like, they're two different worlds. And you had an explanation of it that I thought was very cool. The way you kind of described classical, and I don't want to say in a linear fashion, but something like that. And then when you described jazz, it was more like, you know what I mean? Like, are you kind of recalling, or because I would love if you could kind of give an explanation. I thought it was such a cool way of describing the sort of mindset of jazz.
I mean, the reason I gave that analogy, Aaron, is just for the sake of clarity. Music is music. So let me first say this in case I have another musician calling me and saying that what I'm saying is irresponsible. Let me make the disclaimer. Music is music. And let me say this. I'm going to go a little further to say this. If if Bach, this is my belief, is my personal opinion. So I hold myself accountable for what I'm saying, and it's just my opinion. But I believe that if Bach would have lived another 25, 30 years, he would have come up with jazz.
Right.
Because what he did was purely improvisation, most of it. And he had a tremendous, I would say, out of this world knowledge about harmony. So much so that all the inventions and think of an invention, a piano invention for 2-3 voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think of it, that was an improvisational exercise. How do you think about that? What it takes you to study for a whole semester to go to play in a recital at a school at a university level, well, that happened to be an improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think about it, how different it is, the world of jazz and improvisation from the most classical thing. Now, I'm just giving you one example. Let's talk about many other people. How about Mozart? How about Haydn? How about Brahms? How about Chopin? How about Ravel? How about Rachmaninoff? All of them, without an exception, all of them knew how to compose. And in order to compose, you must know how to improvise.
Right.
Because that's what improvisation is. Improvisation is composition at the moment, right there, at the spot, right? So how different is one thing from the other? I don't think it's that different, right? So having said that, let me say, okay, but there are differences between classical music and jazz. But the difference are historical difference. I don't think it's musicality itself. I don't think it's the music on itself. The difference between jazz and classical music, and not just jazz, I would say more like world music or pop music and classical music, is not itself in the music, but in the methodology of approaching it. So, whereas classical music is linear, meaning there is a pathway to go through it. In other words, if you want to understand the true classical music, you have to go first from the beginning, from the get-go. You have to understand first Bach in order to understand harmony. Then you can understand Mozart in order to understand symmetry, and in order to understand beauty in Victorian terms, in terms of this side equals to this side, and that was beauty in those times. And then after that, you have to understand Beethoven, of course, the drama, the dramatic and passionate spirit of Beethoven and his music, which shaped the next 250 years of music. Then you have Brahms, and then you have the contemporary. You have more like Chopin, and then later you have Ravel and Debussy and Rachmaninoff. I mean, there is a progression in that kind of music that happened for the last 800 years, I would say, since the Gregorian chant music in the second century, right? So in that way, it's linear. There is a progression on that. Now, with jazz is only 110 years old, and within that time, you've seen all these nuances of jazz and forms of jazz that today's almost hard to describe what really jazz is, right? Mm-hmm. And then at some point you have bebop, and you had East Coast jazz and West Coast jazz, and you have hardcore bebop, and so how do you approach jazz is more like if somebody throws a ball to your hands, which one is when you have a ball in your hands, which one is the beginning or the end of the ball? Right? It's kind of hard. Like, where do you start, right? You can't start jazz pretty much everywhere because it's such a I would say it's a very complex thing to understand per se. Understanding improvisation is not easy. Understanding harmony is not easy. But so at that level, you have to see the whole thing as a ball, and whatever you land in that ball is where you start. That's a difference from classical music. You cannot take classical music that way. You cannot say, I'm just going to start playing Rachmaninoff all of a sudden, and I've never seen what Bach is before or Mozart is before. You can't, because you cannot go from one to the other. I do believe, nevertheless, that there is a way, although jazz is a more rounded thing in terms of approaching, I would say that you could learn jazz, first of all, if you understand certain principles such as bebop and the principle of major scales and modes, the major modes, as you probably recall. I think that would be an easier way to understand improvisation if you understand those things. But that's not the only way. That's just one way, and I have seen that it works. But I'm sure that other people, man, there are these kids that play like crazy today that they've never taken lessons before either, and they don't know what the major scales and the modes and all that stuff.
Right,
and I just like crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're like, what the hell? How did they learn all this stuff? So that analogy, to go back to your question, is just an analogy for pedagogical reasons, but I wouldn't say to go that far as to say that it's the music itself. The music, man, if something rhymes with you and it really resonates with you, and that's what you want to learn, and you are good at it, just keep doing what works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it will save you time if you don't try to reinvent the wheel. I would say that. So learning scales and learning modes, it will help. It will serve you well, and I think you can testify that, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Things become more easy to understand when you understand them that way.
Well, then I think so much about it is just being able to speak the language of music. There's a terminology, there's a language to speak. And if you can't speak that language, I mean, you can play music, but if you get in a room of guys that do speak that language, you're kind of in the dark, you're kind of lost. So at some point, I feel like you need to know that to a degree.
You need to know to a degree in order to communicate, as you said, that language. And that language is standard. And just like any language, a language is made up of words. And if you don't understand the words that are being said in a room full of musicians, you're lost, right? Some people speak it better than others. Some people have a way larger vocabulary than others. Some people go so far as to not only they know the words, but they almost can enhance the dictionary, right? Those are the savants that you like Chick Corea, like Herbie Hancock, like Bill Evans, like those guys that not only they knew so well the language, but they built upon it. And
right.
They created stuff. That's to that extent. But to say the least, you got to know the language. If you want to disrupt the language, you have to know it.
Totally right. Know the rules, and then you can break the rules as freely as you want. And speaking of that progression, it's always fascinating yourself and so many other guys that I've met that are sort of in that virtuoso category, and also a lot of metal type guitar players, but also a lot of jazz players of any instrument. They always come back to Bach, and because that guy just freaking did everything, in the 1600s. I
can give you a good analogy, man. And I'm sure you know these people. Let me be clear. I'm a very blunt person when it comes to speaking, right?
Yeah, that's why I like you.
I'm a very guy. Like, I can't stand heavy metal. I just can't take it. I can maybe 4 minutes. It's enough to me before I go nuts. It gets me anxiety. But I can appreciate what good heavy metal is and what crap is as well.
Sure.
So I'm sure you know these guys because I happen to know two of them of what's the name? Green Theater?
Oh, yeah. Dream Theater. Yeah. Huge tech. Yeah.
Yep.
Green Theater. Man, take a look at the main guitar player. I mean, that guy can make noise as he can do it, right? He takes a guitar and that thing is going to blow your ears. But ask him to play a fugue. It'll do it on the spot.
I don't know. Petrucci's pretty good, man.
He's an amazing musician, and he plays Bach just with the same versatility that he plays.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So why does he know Bach? Why can he play Baroque music on the guitar? If what he does is heavy metal, well, hence lies the answer, because he has such a tremendous knowledge of what he's doing. He plays with responsibility. That's what, to me, it's all about, man. I don't care what music you play and how and what you like or not, because you can't really tell much about taste. That's all. Yeah. Look, and I'm in front literally of 2,000 different fruits. Which one you like best? Which one resonates with you? Which one you prefer? It's up to you. I can't come and tell you, man. Now
it's all fruit. It's all fruit.
It's all fruit. It's all fruit, and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's what the quality is. Okay,
man.
Is it a good? Is it a well harvest? Does it have pesticides? Is it well?
See, Vic, this is why I like him, man, because this is what I always rant about on this podcast. It's like, that's all that matters to me. The musical genre is irrelevant. It's right. Where it comes from. It's like, is that you and your soul is the expression of the artist. That's what matters, you know?
I tell you why it's irrelevant, man, because we are almost 6 billion people on Earth and counting. So you will find somewhere and a good amount of people that will listen to the music you play, no matter where you are, no matter what you play, no matter where you're from. You will find a market, a niche for your type of music. It doesn't matter what you play. It doesn't matter. So the problem is not whether there are people that will listen to your stuff or not. That's not the problem.
Right.
The problem is that make sure that what you do is such a high quality that the niche that follows you is a very educated, high quality niche, so that you can deliver to those people the right kind of stuff, so that you just don't play for the masses. Because, as I said earlier, what we have today, it's an entertaining industry machinery that all it matters is the selling of the music. It's not music. Let me put it this way. It's not music fit for a taste. It's you indoctrinate people to taste your crap.
Yeah, McDonald's. It's all exactly. McDonald's. Yeah.
McDonald's. It's Burger King. It's all that crap. I am not making something so that you can find the quality of it. No, I'm making something so that I can have the biggest amount of people that show up in this room, and I'm going to make them like it. I'm going to make them like it. I'm going to put addictive stuff on it so that you find it good. Of course, if you've never had fruit like this, like the ones I have in the
you don't know any better.
You don't know any better. Anything that tastes sweet is just as good.
Yeah, who knew what? I love this fruit analogy, man. I think that's a great parallel right there. And back to what we were talking about in terms of jazz, metal or rock or whatever. You saw that trajectory start happening, I think, in the late 60s, early 70s with rock and roll that became, quote, heavy metal. And then it has a billion genres just like jazz, or offshoots. But I think a lot of those guys, myself included, are very big classical fans, and you can draw that parallel to guys like Beethoven and Mozart. And I think that's why a lot of those guys are great players and really actually it makes sense that they would like a Baroque style or a classical style, because it's very, I don't want to use the word rigid, but it's very, regimented, right? And it's very precise. And so it makes sense to me that those guys that play things over and over and work on speed and the technical side of music, it's very much grounded in that. To me, and that's the same thing you were saying, right? These things, you have to go back. All these things come from somewhere, right? And so that style of music to me is just shit that Beethoven and Mozart and Bach did, 200-300 years before. It's the same thing.
Same thing. I am right now working on a particular piece of Brahms from the Opus 118. If you have the chance to listen to it, and whoever is listening to this, listen to the Opus 118. The ballad is in G minor. It's a very fast, upbeat piece for piano. It's a beautiful piece, and it's a Hungarian piece because Brahms was from Hungary. Now, when I am arranging that particular piece in samba, because I am sure that if Brahms would have been born in Brazil, he would have played it as a samba.
Sure, yeah.
He played Hungarian because that was the rhythm of Hungary. That's what he had available, and he made a great thing out of it. But point being is, even for me to make a samba, I mean, that's what I'm trying to refer to. If you listen to that piece and you see the complexity of his harmony, the beauty of his inner voices and all that stuff, you will find that you can play that particular piece in a samba, in a cha-cha, in a Hungarian style, in any style, and it'll just sound right.
Right.
It's so well done. It's so well done that it'll make sense.
Well, and that's the thing about a great melody. And you go listen to big symphonies, they're always based on, a lot of times, very simple melodies, and you can do anything in the world with that melody. And to your point about rearranging something for a samba or whatever, it's like, I think a lot of things around the world, we're using the same notes and the same general harmony. It's the rhythms that really shift and make stylistically give it that stamp, right? Or culturally give it a stamp.
Rhythms and simple melody, simplicity. I'll give you two examples, man. I'm going to give you two things. Number one, simplicity. Think of Mozart. Mm-hmm. That simplicity of music is one of the hardest things to play on the piano. It's so hard to play Mozart well, precisely because of his simplicity. There is a particular sound that comes out of that simplicity that you just don't get by sitting on the piano once. It doesn't work like that. You have to spend years and years to get that kind of a sound because that's what he was about, that simplicity. Number two, I'll give you another good example. Hans Zimmer and Newton Howard, when Batman the movie, remember, with the Joker, with what was his name, the guy who
Heath Ledger?
Heath Ledger,
yeah.
Remember what a great movie that was, right? I think that's probably the best impersonation of the Joker, besides the latest movie of the Joker, which is just about the Joker itself, right? Mm-hmm. But Batman per se, to me, that's the best Batman ever produced, ever. Because his performance in that movie was just outstanding, right? If you remember of that movie, please, whenever this thing is over, go back and listen to this. Listen to the music theme of the Joker.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's just a bunch of strings tremolo. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if you listen to the soundtrack of Batman, whenever Batman shows up, I'll tell you what happened between Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer, probably one of the most famous film score composer. They were having coffee in Vienna, both of them, and Lucas. No, it wasn't Lucasfilm. It was
Chris Nolan, right?
Yeah, exactly. They came to both of the guys and said, "Can you compose the music for this stuff?" They said, "Of course we can." All right. They both got together, like you and I got together, have coffee in Vienna. Hey, Aaron, come up with one note, and I'll come up with another note at the same time. And those two notes are going to be the main theme of the freaking soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
And so they both said, at the count of three, you sing your note and I sing mine. Newton Howard sang a D and Hans Zimmer sang an F. Da-dee,
mm-hmm.
da-dee, and that's Batman's.
Oh, really? So they just did a minor third melody?
A minor third. Da-da. Now, that D has a D minor as a chord,
mm-hmm.
and it resolves to a B flat major on the F. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Fun. And every time that Batman shows up, you will hear that theme.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing score.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. I think of a composer that I love. I really like a lot of the Russian composers, and Prokofiev is a favorite of mine, man. And you think of like Peter and the Wolf, and the and those are just so brilliant, man. And it's like cartoon. We think of it almost in a more modern sense. And when he was around, right, coming into the modern composers, composing stuff, propaganda, composing. I love the movie Alexander Nevsky. Do you know that one? It's a whole propaganda film. I love the music in that, right? And he was like, they were like under the thumb of Stalin having to do this shit, and it was great. But their music was so amazing and seemingly innovative. But to me, it like that bled into the 20th century, obviously, and then the cartoon music and thematic music and movie music. You're really telling a story with the visuals of characters and stuff. But whether you've got that visual there or not, you can picture it in your head. It provokes an emotion and a character, right?
This is probably one of the reasons why we ought to go back to roots, man, is because we have become so desensitized to good things that we think good things are not good things. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to say this I have had this conversation before, precisely at Steinway. One time I remember this couple that came and they say, and who are you to tell me that this music is better than this other music? And I asked the same question to her, and who are you to tell me not?
Yeah.
Can you play?
Yeah.
Can you play it? She can. I said, well, you cannot even play, and you're telling me that you can tell me this is not better than that. I have better grounds to tell you this is better than that. It is a much costly effort to play this music.
Well, you just said one thing, and I think of this, man. First of all, you've put in. I'm going to say a few things that you said to me that I found very inspirational, and I actually want to go back to the monks as well. But you put in that time, you dedicated a life, whether you're a musician or an artist or a chef or whatever the case may be, you've dedicated your life to that craft. So when someone else comes along and they just go, make some bullshit tacos that anybody could make, or they take some photos and put it on Instagram and call themselves a photographer, or they walk into a room and have the audacity to tell you that Blobby Blah is the greatest pianist in the world when you've spent your whole life studying. Now, yes, music is subjective, but if you cannot step back, that's one thing I've always looked at. And I've said, you have to be able to appreciate the talent and the effort and the masters. And like, no matter, like, that's when people say, I hate the Beatles. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, it's impossible to hate the Beatles. You have to respect the Beatles.
When people say music is subjective, and that's the problem. Subjectivity is a term from the Greeks, which we have prostituted that term. We've used it so much so at will that we make out of it whatever we think it is. Subjective, yes, it means you have a personal opinion on something, but it's based on a common ground education, according to the Greek. You can be subjective if we both of us understand the same concepts.
Right.
So you have a subjectivity about why is heavy metal a good source of music, and I have a subjective opinion that is not. That's subjectivity, and you cannot prove me wrong, and I cannot prove you wrong either. Right. That's when we talk. But you and I agree that at a fundamental level, we can speak about the same concepts. That's where we have made a huge mistake, and there are better choices in music than others. I can prove that if you give me a chalkboard, I can prove it to you that certain harmony is better than other harmony. It's not, I'm not making that up. It's not my opinion. It's the opinion of hundreds of musicians, of hundreds of legends, of sages that have come through time and that have proven over and over and over again. And as a matter of fact, I can even go as far as say, I can prove that to you at a fundamental neurological level. Your brain reacts differently from certain harmony than others. Even water reacts different from certain harmony than others. So don't give me that bullshit that is all the same. It's
right. Well, that comes down to actual science and mathematics. Like these are mathematical principles of the driving forces of the universe are mixed up in what we're talking about. So in that rationale, you're right. It's not totally subjective because it is grounded in facts, scientific facts.
grounded in facts. Think of it of what we understand of entropy. Entropy in physics is that chaos, and even that chaos has an order, an underlying intelligence order. So it's not just chaos for the sake of it. For that matter, and I have this girl came in and said, well, if I throw a cat on the piano and starts walking on the piano, that's just art. It's the same kind of art that I'll make, or that Mozart made, or that Chick Corea makes. Are you out of your freaking nuts? I mean, come on.
To me, that's no different than comparing a Stanley Kubrick, 2001 to a porno. One is art. One is based on a life's work, study, philosophy, all these elements that came together to make this art, and the other is just two people fucking in front of a camera.
And if you tell me exactly right, and if you come and tell me that that's the same thing, that only says how stupid you are and how ignorant you are.
Yeah, it is ignorant.
It's just all it says to me. It says, I'm an ignorant pig, and I have no different. Man, here is the same thing that Mark Twain once said when somebody came and asked him about, well, all politicians are the same. All politicians are the same. Mark Twain said, you know what? For somebody who doesn't know how to read, for an illiterate person, every book looks the same too.
Yeah. Right?
All books look the same. They all have pages. They all have a cover. So, in fact, the difference is what color the page, the front is. That's all the difference. And if you have more colors, it may be a better book. Come on, dude. No, you got to know how to read in order to understand what is being said there, what the ideas in that book are.
Well,
music. And you can have an education of how to listen to music. There are ways to listen to music. It's not just for the sake of it. So if I don't listen to something, I deliberately say I don't like it, but I have grounds to say I don't like it. It's not just because it doesn't pleases me or pleases me, because I have educated my ear in a way that I think is coherent with what history has shown in the past. And yes, I can compose, but I'm not reinventing the wheel. Come on, no, I'm not making that up. I can only build things upon what has been built before. And I think that's what responsibility comes about. And that's, to me, the biggest problem we have in our society today. Everybody's an expert.
Right.
Everybody knows everything. Because everybody has access to a stupid mic and a
right. You made a beat, and now you're a musician. You think, it makes me, this is why I love talking, because you're the kind of guy that gets as passionate as I do about this bullshit when someone runs around calling themselves a genius because they sample a few beats and rap on it. I'm like, come on, man, fuck you.
Like a DJ?
Exactly.
I'm like Kanye.
But Aaron, it's the same thing with any field. I mean, look about how many models, how many we are in the world of narcissism, because everybody takes their own pictures. Everybody has a story to tell. Okay, yeah, if you have a story to tell, work on it. I'm sure you have a story to tell, but work on it. You gotta work on it. You have to put effort into this. You have to put your soul into this. Now, man, I think that this is inevitable for me to mention this, as you know, the reflection, the pinnacle of the decline of this society and our narcissistic mentality was shown in the last 4 years. America chose the most narcissistic pig that could ever exist in the politics, in the narrative politics of the United States ever in history. A man that says over 200 times, I am better than fill in the blank.
Right.
Nobody knows better than me. No, that's called a narcissistic mentality. That's a sickness. That's illness. It's a mental problem. And we are full of that stuff. And so I can make my own music. I can make my own history. I am a photographer. I'm a scientist. I tell you what vaccines work, what vaccines don't work. I know better than you about vaccines. Bill Gates is eating children. What else? I mean, come on, man. It's the whole thing.
No, I know. It's ridiculous.
It's reflected in every single aspect of society. Music is one of them. Look at the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck?
I'm very proud of myself for not watching them. Did not even bother watching them.
To tell you the truth, I didn't either. I only know that he got the Grammy. And
Who did?
Tell you the truth, I have no idea who he was, nor I care. But I was curious to say, well, let me hear what this is about. Yeah, it's just one more proof of this point.
Yeah.
That's
well, the irony of it is, man, is there's all these categories and they don't get televised. And I'm sure some of the Grammy parties and stuff are really cool because there are jazz musicians in class. There are all those guys in there. We just don't see them on the televised stuff. Is all about that pop, it's McDonald's, right? There is some fine dining. We just don't get to see it as the general public, and it's a shame.
Only the people with the finest taste. And I think I'll tell you this. I'll go further to say that I have my hopes that this coming 10, 15 years will be the years of coming back to the roots.
Yeah.
And it's a responsibility. People are so fed up there's so much crap out there, so much crap that people are tending to start to listen to more. They are consuming more their own thing precisely because we are fed up of the crap, right? So we're going back to roots. And I think this is the time for us to show up roots. This is the time to show up the good fruits like here. You want to have fruit? I'll tell you where you can find the real stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
They're coming back. Aaron, and I am so sorry to tell you that I only have 5% left of this thing, of my battery.
All good. Hey, real quick, man, before you go, we're gonna have to do this again when you're actually on a, we'll do it. We'll do a proper one. But this was fun. I'm glad we did this and just got a little something with you, man. The monks. I remember when you put that on over the loudspeakers at the Steinway place, and you were getting really emotional about it. And I like the way you're talking about roots, and you brought it all the way down that level. And that to me was like fascinating, but also like, wow, this is actually really legitimate because you sort of like, is he gone?
No, I'm here.
If you cannot get something all the way down there deep at that fundamental level, how can you ever, you have to plant the roots, right? And water the soil to grow the tree. You can't just start. And that's the thing, right? People want to start, they want to read an article, watch a YouTube video, and all of a sudden they want to be on the 10th story. No, you have to lay the concrete, the foundation, and build. You have to understand that and be in touch with that. That has got to fill your soul, like to really grow from there, right?
Let me say this to say goodbye. For anybody who listens to this podcast, for anybody who has the guts to listen to this conversation for the last hour, go ahead after this thing and turn on YouTube and play Gregorian chant music.
I like it. It's
just
great.
For 30 minutes. And in our next podcast, I'll explain why this is so important. If you want to understand anything about music, about harmony, about modes, listen for 30 minutes to Gregorian music with an attentive ear. I'm not asking you to like it. You don't have to like it. It's just to appreciate it for what it is. Because there is such a historical hole in any musician, in anybody who does arts. He doesn't understand Gregorian music. It's like, dude, that's like, I don't know the alphabet, but I speak and I can write, but I don't know the alphabet. I don't know what the alphabet is. Never seen one. And we're having this conversation. He said, come on, dude, you know how to talk, but you don't know how to write.
Yeah.
I'll teach you how to write. It's easy. It's actually not that hard. It's your mind will expand so much after you listen to Gregorian music, to Gregorian chant music, that you will understand what Bach did and what Chick Corea does as well. That's how big this is. Mm-hmm. And you will understand the difference between the crap and the good as well. It's so easy. It's not, in fact, it doesn't take that much knowledge. It just takes a curiosity to go deeper. That's right. All. And music is not, that's all we need to understand, man. Music is not a horizontal process. It's a vertical one. It's not how wide you can play. It's how deep you can go.
Right.
You can't play all styles perfectly. You can't do it. You don't have enough years in your life to do it. But you can go deeper in what you're doing. And if you want to go deeper, you really have to do the homework. And that homework takes effort. And that effort means you have to get through the struggle. And that's the stuff we don't like. the struggle. We run away from struggle because it's, I don't want to go through this. Well, then don't talk to me about music. Don't tell me what is good and what isn't good if you never struggle with it. That's to me the major point of this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right on,
Agreed.
dude. Esteban, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for doing this. I really want to do another one with you. I love talking to you, man. It's just it's just interesting and inspirational, even just to talk to you, man. To me, I feel like that in of itself is a music lesson and a life lesson. So I appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the good organic that doesn't have to be called organic fruit, my friend.
Absolutely, man. I'll enjoy it for all of you over there.
All right.
Okay, man. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Aaron.
You got it, dude.
Hey,
bye.